I used to believe that after 29 years of marriage, nothing could surprise me anymore. Turns out, betrayal has a way of sneaking up on you at the exact moment you feel safest, like when your wife is singing off-key in the shower and you're smiling to yourself right before your life detonates in your hands. Because that's exactly when I saw it. A message, a number I didn't recognize, and 5 little words that cracked open my entire world. I can't wait to see you. My name is Callan. I'm 50 years old, and until that moment, I genuinely believed I had a good life. My wife, my partner of nearly 3 decades, was humming behind the bathroom door, steam drifting out into the hallway. I just walked past her phone on the dresser, expecting one of the usual messages from our daughters, Alice and Maddie, confirming details for another one of their weekly girls' dinners. Nothing unusual, totally normal. But then that notification lit up the screen. A heart, a kiss emoji, and words no husband should ever see. I froze mid-step. You know those moments where the world goes eerily quiet like someone pressed pause on the universe? Yeah, that was me, standing in my bedroom, hearing nothing but the faint rush of the shower. My first instinct? Denial. The kind that strangles your throat while whispering, "No, you're misreading this. It's nothing. It has to be nothing." But I already knew. Deep down, I knew. My hands shook as I opened the thread. Short, sweet, intimate in a way that left no room for misinterpretation. I missed you. Once a week isn't enough. Tonight can't come fast enough. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I felt hot, then cold, then sick. I remember staring at the words, feeling them brand themselves into my brain. 29 years. Gone. Just like that, reduced to a string of flirty texts with a man I hadn't even identified yet. The sound of the shower paused. The water stopped running. Reality snapped back into motion. I locked the screen and set her phone back exactly where it had been. Same angle, same distance, like defusing a bomb. Because at that moment, my marriage felt like one. And I didn't know whether it had already exploded or was about to. She came out smiling, towel around her hair, chatting about dinner and errands as if nothing in the world was wrong. And I felt hollow, like I was watching my life from outside my body. I needed clarity, proof, anything that wasn't vague texts and gut instinct. So I tried something simple. Something I thought might catch her in a harmless lie and end this nightmare. I grabbed my own phone and texted our daughters. "Hey, what time is girls' dinner tonight?" If they hesitated, if they acted confused, I'd know the truth. But instead, both girls instantly replied. Alice, 7 p.m. We're excited. Maddie, "Can't wait, Dad. Love you." That hurt. More than anything I'd read on her phone, because that meant they knew. They were covering for her, for their mother, and they were lying to me, their father. I felt something inside me crack, something I never thought would break when it came to my children. Trust. Still, I needed certainty. I needed to see it with my own eyes, and so, in a moment I'm not proud of, I did something I never thought I'd do. While she was getting ready, I discreetly toggled her location sharing back on. One button, one decision, one silent admission. My wife is cheating on me. She kissed me goodbye, on the cheek, out of habit, and walked out the door with a smile that made my stomach twist. I followed her. My heart was racing the entire drive. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my fingers went numb. My breath kept catching in my throat every time the little blue dot on my screen shifted. But nothing could have prepared me for what I saw. The restaurant, the soft lighting, the table set for 2, And sitting across from her, laughing, leaning close, and holding her hands, was her boss. A man I'd met. A man I'd welcomed into my home for holiday dinners. A man who had shaken my hand while looking me right in the eye. My chest felt like someone had shoved a fist straight through it. Part of me, some delusional, desperate part, still hoped I'd walk in and see my daughters there instead, that this was all some misunderstanding, some horrible coincidence. But no, it was her, him, and the truth. I watched long enough to see them hold hands, lean across the table, and kiss. And as soon as his hand slid up her arm in a way no married man should touch another man's wife, something in me snapped. I lifted my phone. I took photos. Hands, faces, kissing, evidence. And then, instead of waiting, instead of planning, instead of breathing, I detonated the bomb. I opened our family group chat, the same one we used for birthdays, memes, vacations. I sent every photo, and I wrote, "Glad you're enjoying girls' dinner together." Then I turned my phone off, sat in my car, breathing like I'd just run a marathon, hands shaking so violently I dropped my keys twice. I don't remember the drive to my brother's house. I remember highways, blurred lights, but mostly I remember feeling like a ghost behind the wheel. I slept on his couch that night, if you can call what I did sleeping. I closed my eyes, but every time I did, I saw them, laughing, touching. My daughter's lies, my wife's betrayal, my own stupidity. And in the morning, my phone was overflowing. 40 texts, 20 voicemails, a wall of desperation from my wife that followed every cliché in the cheater's manual. I didn't listen to any of it. I was seconds, literally seconds away from texting her, "I will be getting a divorce. I recommend a lawyer." But my brother stopped me. He told me something I hadn't even considered. "Callan, don't you dare let her get the best attorneys in town. You meet them first. Make them conflict out." And that advice? That's where the first spark of revenge ignited in my chest. Because I wasn't just going to leave her. I was going to make sure she felt every ounce of the pain she'd put me through. But before the revenge came something even harder. The fallout with my daughters. And that deserves its own cliffhanger. I didn't sleep the night I wrote that last line in my journal. I don't know how to move forward. Truth was, I didn't even believe there was a forward anymore. Not for me. Not for the life I'd spent nearly 3 decades building. The next morning, at my brother's place, I woke up to this crushing tightness in my chest. Not pain exactly, more like someone had reached inside and tightened a fist around whatever was left of my heart. I stared at the ceiling and tried to remember what it felt like to wake up without dread, but my mind wouldn't go back that far. I wasn't Callan the father. I wasn't Callan the husband. I wasn't even Callan the man who had a life. I was just a shell. My brother knocked softly on the door before poking his head in. "You want coffee?" he asked. I nodded, not trusting my voice. He lingered for a second, studying me with the same concern people use when they're afraid you might shatter if they breathe too hard. "Callan," he said quietly, "you're allowed to break down, man." I swallowed. Yeah, I know. But I didn't break down then. Not yet. My breakdowns were saved for the moments when I was alone, when nobody could see the way my body shook with anger and sorrow, the way I pressed my hands to my face because I couldn't stand to look at the world as it was now. Because the world I knew, the world I trusted, had ended at that restaurant. By noon, I worked up the courage to turn my phone back on. The notifications flooded in like a hurricane, buzzing, chiming, vibrating against the nightstand until it nearly fell off. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the screen as if it had turned into some wild animal that might bite me. Voicemail after voicemail, text after text. My wife's name, soon to be ex, I reminded myself, was repeated so many times the notifications blurred together. But it was my daughter's messages that hurt worst. Maddie, my youngest, my baby girl, had left a digital trail of pure panic, dozens of texts, desperate apologies, terrified rambling. She wasn't defending her mother. She wasn't making excuses. She was begging for forgiveness, like she'd betrayed me personally, like she'd stabbed the knife herself. "Dad, please answer. I'm so sorry, Dad. I never wanted to lie." She begged me, "Dad, please, I'm so stupid. Please don't hate me, Dad. Please. Please just tell me you're okay. Please." Reading them physically hurt. Like each sentence carried its own weight and settled onto my shoulders. My eyes burned hot, and before I could stop myself, I let out this quiet, broken sound, something between a sigh and a sob. Then came messages from her boyfriend. "She's spiraling. I don't know what happened, but please, man, please call her. She's about to have a panic attack." My hands trembled as I typed. "Maddie, I love you, but what you've done hurt me deeply. I need space. Please give that to me." Her reply came in seconds. "Okay, I'm so sorry. I'll never forgive myself. I love you too." Nothing in my life had ever hurt as much as that message did. Not even the photos I took of my wife and her affair partner. Because betrayal from your spouse destroys your marriage. But betrayal from your child, that destroys you. Then there was Alice, my eldest, my wife's favorite. Her messages were different, colder, controlled, as if she'd rehearsed them in the mirror first. "Dad, I'm really sorry this happened, but please don't make this bigger than it has to be. Mom made a mistake. People make mistakes. Please don't throw away a good marriage over this." Something inside me snapped. For a moment, it wasn't grief that consumed me. It was heat, burning, violent, a roar of disbelief so strong I actually stood up from the bed as if my body couldn't handle being still. A mistake? A mistake? A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is losing your temper or saying something you regret. A mistake is dropping a plate. A months-long affair, planned dinners, hotel rooms, secret messages. That isn't a mistake. That's a choice. A decision repeated over and over until it turns into a double life. I typed back, "Alice, this isn't a mistake. This is a betrayal. From all of you. Don't contact me again until I reach out first." She didn't respond. But an hour later, my wife texted me something eerily similar, which meant Alice had already forwarded my message, already chosen her mother's side. And that was the moment, right then, when I realized I couldn't trust her either. Not now. Maybe not even ever again. The next few days blurred together. 5 days of waking up and crying before I even sat upright. 5 days of pacing the room because I couldn't sit still. 5 days of lying awake at night, replaying the image of my wife holding another man's hand, leaning in, her eyes soft in ways they hadn't been with me in years. The worst moments were mornings. That was when my mind was foggy enough to forget and then remember all over again. Every sunrise felt like a fresh wound. I'd sit at the edge of the bed, head in hands, and the sobs would hit without warning. Ugly, shaking, gasping things. The kind of crying that comes from your bones, not your eyes. My brother tried to help. He offered breakfasts I didn't eat, coffee I didn't drink, space I couldn't fill with anything except grief. "Callan, man, you've got to talk to someone," he said one morning. "I am," I replied hollowly. "Who?" "Lawyers." Because every moment I wasn't crying, I was planning. I spent an entire day driving around town, walking into every top-rated law office I could find and booking consultations. Half of them recognized my wife's name before I even sat down. Apparently her boss, the affair partner, had a reputation that preceded him. Most lawyers gave me the polite version of, "I'm sorry you're going through this." One lawyer, the one I eventually hired, didn't bother with politeness. He leaned back in his leather chair, steepled his fingers, and said, "Callan, if you want scorched earth, I can give you scorched earth." Those words warmed something inside me. Maybe not warmth, maybe ignition. I nodded. I want the truth exposed. All of it. His smile said he'd been waiting his whole career to hear those words. Back at my brother's place, after the lawyer meetings, after the emotional crash that followed, I scrolled through my phone and realized something. My home, the home that I had built, was now foreign territory. My wife kept texting, "We need to talk. Please come home. You misunderstood everything. It wasn't like that. I can explain." Then the classic, "Can we please fix this for the girls?" For the girls. The same girls who had known and lied to me. The girls whose shoulders had been used to brace her affair as she climbed deeper into betrayal. I didn't answer. Not her, not Alice. Only one person had a chance of hearing from me again. Maddie. But not yet. I needed time. I needed clarity. I needed the anger to cool enough that it didn't control me. Because anger was a terrible driver. Revenge? That required a steady hand. And mine was finally becoming steady. If I thought the nights were bad before, nothing prepared me for the fourth night. I didn't sleep, not even for a second. I lay on the guest bed in my brother's spare room, the cheap ceiling fan clacking, the moonlight slicing across the carpet, my heart thundering loud enough that I could feel it in my teeth, and something inside me hit a breaking point. Not in the way grief breaks you, in the way steel finally hardens. Up until then, all I'd done was survive. Now, I was ready to act. Because something had been gnawing at me ever since this exploded, louder than the heartbreak, louder than the humiliation. A question. A simple but vicious question. How long had this been going on? My mind replayed all the little signs I brushed off. The girls' dinner, the late nights, the boss's name showing up in casual stories, the new underwear she bought just to feel young again, the way she'd pull her phone away when she got notifications. I had minimized it all, because that's what you do when you love someone. You give them every benefit of every doubt, and they repay you by hanging you out to dry. But now that I had space, cold, suffocating space, I realized something. Her behavior didn't start weeks ago, or even months ago. This had roots, and roots have history. I needed answers, not for closure, not for healing, for strategic purposes. Because revenge without information, that's just emotion. Revenge with information, that's a blueprint. It started when I opened my laptop and stared at the lock screen. A picture of us on our 25th anniversary popped up, her kissing my cheek while I awkwardly smiled. I felt physically sick. I shoved the laptop off the bed, hard enough that it bounced. I couldn't look at that face. Instead, I grabbed my phone, opened the cloud account we shared, and dug through backups. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. But when you're in free fall, your brain finds ways to latch onto anything that looks like a rope. I checked deleted messages, deleted photos, browsing history, calendar reminders. Piece by piece, a timeline began forming, and with every puzzle piece I connected, the pit in my stomach became a crater. They had been seeing each other for 7 months. Every girls' dinner? Him. Every sudden work crisis? Him. Every late night, "I'm too tired, maybe tomorrow" conversation about intimacy? Also because of him. The betrayal I felt reading their messages wasn't even the worst part. It was seeing messages where she talked about our daughters helping her lie. Not just covering, not just staying silent. Helping. Alice more than Maddie, but both involved. I had to put my phone down twice because my hands were shaking too badly. Then I found something that nearly stopped my heart. A calendar entry titled, "First Time, Heart." 6 months ago. I stared at the date until my vision blurred. That week, that same week, I'd surprised her with a weekend getaway. Just the two of us. I paid for everything. Bought flowers, booked a cabin by the lake. She told me it was exactly what she needed. She was sleeping with her boss 3 days before that trip. I tasted blood in my mouth. Real blood. I'd bitten my cheek without noticing. I set the phone down. I sat at the edge of the bed. I tried to breathe. That was when the switch flipped. The one I didn't know I had. The one that said, no more tears, no more begging, no more trying to understand. I wasn't going to heal. Not yet. First, I was going to win. By the 5th morning, my brother knocked softly on the door. You up? I didn't answer. Just opened the door. He took one look at me, red eyes, jaw clenched tight enough that the muscles twitched, and didn't ask if I was okay. He just nodded. You ready? He asked. I'm ready. We drove downtown in silence. He knew the plan. He'd helped craft it. The strategy wasn't about punishing her emotionally. That was easy and petty. This was about real-world consequences. Financial, legal, social, structural. I wasn't out to hurt her on impulse. I was out to dismantle the entire web that made her comfortable enough to betray me for nearly a year. The law firm I'd chosen, a top-tier, no-nonsense attorney named Catherine Hale, greeted me at the door like she'd been waiting her whole life for a case this cutthroat. She shook my hand firmly. Callan, let's begin. She didn't offer me coffee, didn't ask how I was feeling. She slid a thick leather folder across the desk. This, she said, is the plan of attack. I opened it. My eyebrows nearly hit my hairline. She'd already drafted initial filings. She'd already compiled marriage assets. She'd made a strategy tree with 3 branches: financial domination, custody of assets control, exposure mitigation, preventing my wife from weaponizing my actions. I'm pushing for disproportionate division. Given the infidelity, given the deception, and given the length of the marriage, you're entitled to pursue a very aggressive slice of assets. I swallowed. And if she fights? Catherine smiled like a shark spotting blood in the water. Then we fight harder. I leaned forward. I want scorched earth. Good, she said, because I already prepared for that. She slid another envelope toward me. Inside were printed screenshots, the ones I'd taken at the restaurant, plus everything from the cloud. You documented everything perfectly, she said. Judges hate long-term deception. It swings the entire negotiation. I realized something in that moment. I wasn't powerless. She didn't break a man who would crawl. She betrayed a man who would adapt, a man who would rise. This wasn't heartbreak anymore. This was war. Before leaving the office, I asked Catherine one question. Is there anything stopping me from exposing them? Her answer changed everything. Publicly, yes. It could complicate the divorce. But privately, to the right people, strategically, that can be extremely effective. I knew exactly who the right people were. Her boss's wife. Yes, my wife was sleeping with a married man, and I had all the proof in the world. Catherine didn't tell me what to do explicitly, but she didn't stop me either. Just don't post anything publicly, she reiterated. No social media, keep everything direct, factual, and private. I nodded, slow and deliberate. This wasn't revenge porn. This wasn't slander posting. This wasn't rage posting. This was notification of reality, and it was time to notify her boss's wife. I didn't reach out yet, but I prepared. Screenshots organized, timeline outlined, pictures labeled, lawyer-approved message drafted. I wasn't pulling the trigger yet, but I was loading the gun. That evening, I did something that would set the entire next phase into motion. I turned my phone back on. In seconds, it exploded with notifications again. A wall of texts from my wife. Half-baked apologies, blame shifting, guilt tripping, voice messages starting with sobs and ending with manipulative calmness. I didn't open a single one. My daughters had messaged too. Dozens of unread texts. Maddie, Dad, please come home. I feel sick. Please, please talk to me. I swear on my life I'll never lie again. Please don't leave us. Alice, Mom is a good person. She made a mistake. You're blowing this out of proportion. That one stung. Not because she was wrong, but because it showed exactly how far the betrayal ran. But I didn't answer either. Not yet. Instead, I activated the mechanism I'd been piecing together. Silence. Strategic silence. Because silence is loud. Silence creates pressure. Silence makes the guilty panic. And panic makes people expose themselves. That night, around 11:47 p.m., my phone buzzed with a notification that made my pulse spike. A message on the family group chat from my wife. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't a plea. It was, "We need to talk. All of us. Tomorrow. Noon." My brother, sitting next to me on the couch, raised an eyebrow. "Well," he muttered, "that's going to be interesting." He was wrong. It wasn't interesting.
It was perfect. Because she didn't know something I had just learned from my lawyer that afternoon. In my state, and in my specific county, once a formal consultation with a lawyer occurs, the spouse cannot hire anyone from that firm or any partner firm. They're conflicted out. My wife still thought she could talk things through, manipulate the narrative, try to emotionally bulldoze me back into compliance, act like this was marital turbulence instead of a 7-month demolition. But by tomorrow at noon, she'd have no legal representation options left except the scraps. I glanced at my brother. "Set it up?" he asked. I nodded. "Let's set it up." I typed the first words I'd sent in days. Short, controlled, ice cold. "I'll be there." 4 words. Nothing more. That was all it took. My wife immediately sent back paragraphs of frantic messages. My daughters sent crying emojis, question marks, "Daddy, please," everything you can imagine. I didn't answer any of them. I sat back on the couch, closed my eyes, exhaled. Because for the first time in days, I felt something new. Not anger, not heartbreak. Direction. A sense of momentum. Purpose. A turning point. Tomorrow at noon, my wife thought it would be a reconciliation attempt. She had no idea it would be the first step in her downfall. The morning of the family meeting felt still. Not peaceful, no. More like the silence before a thunderstorm hits hard enough to rattle windows. I woke up early, not because I slept well, but because I didn't sleep at all. Every hour of the night, I lay awake in my brother's guest room, replaying the plan in my mind. The legal groundwork, the information, the leverage, the timing. Every piece of it clicked together like gears in a machine, finally ready to run. The pain was still there. The anger, too. But behind them, something new had rooted take. Resolve. I showered, got dressed, buttoned a clean shirt with hands that didn't shake anymore. My brother looked up from the kitchen table when I walked in. "You ready?" he asked. I nodded. He studied me for a long moment. "You look different," he finally said. "I feel different. Because today wasn't about heartbreak. Today was execution." When I pulled into the driveway of the home I'd built, brick by brick, sacrifice by sacrifice, my chest tightened. Not with fear, with clarity. Everything about the house looked the same. The porch plant she always forgot to water. The welcome mat our daughters made when they were little. The wind chime she insisted made the evenings peaceful. Peaceful for her, not for the man she betrayed. I walked in. The air was tense, thick, charged. My wife stood in the living room, wringing her hands, mascara already smudged. Alice sat stiffly on the couch, arms crossed, jaw tight. Maddie was pacing, pale and shaking, eyes already glassy with tears. For a second, just 1 second, I felt that pinprick of the old fatherly instinct to comfort her. But the wound was still too fresh, her betrayal too deep. So I didn't move, didn't speak, didn't offer comfort. I simply closed the door behind me. My wife took a step forward. "Callan, honey, we need to talk. There are so many misunderstandings." "No." My voice cut through the room like a blade. All three froze. "I'm not talking about misunderstandings," I said. "We're talking about choices. Your choices." Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Good. This wasn't her stage anymore. I didn't sit, didn't lower myself to their level. I stood, grounded, controlled. "I met with attorneys," I said calmly. The blood drained from her face. Alice stiffened. Maddie gasped softly. "I met with all of the top firms in this county, every single one." I paused. "Which means you can't use them." Her lips parted in horror. "Callan, why would you—" "Because," I said, "you forfeited the right to resources, support, or protection the moment you turned our daughters into accomplices." Maddie flinched like I'd slapped her. Alice straightened indignant. "Dad, that's a little extreme." I looked directly at her. "You lied to me, Alice. You helped your mother deceive me, and then you told me not to throw away a good marriage over her affair." Her mouth snapped shut. So I continued. "You chose your mother's comfort over my dignity. Don't pretend to be shocked that there are consequences." Even my wife didn't defend her this time. Even she knew Alice had stepped into the line of fire willingly. I pulled the folder from my bag and set it on the coffee table. Inside were the printed screenshots, photographs from the restaurant, text messages, deleted cloud backups, timeline documentation. My wife stared at it like it was a ticking bomb. "Do you know what this is?" I asked. She swallowed. "Callan, please. It's your affair. Organized, dated, archived." Maddie started crying. Alice stared at the floor. My wife whispered, "You're trying to destroy me." "No," I said. "You destroyed us. I'm simply documenting it." "Callan," my wife said shakily, "we can work through this. We can go to counseling. I'll quit my job. I'll block him. I'll do anything." "You already did everything," I said flatly. "Just not with me." Her breath hitched. Then, barely above a whisper, she tried the final card in the deck. "Please, don't tell his wife." Ah, there it was. Fear. Genuine, desperate fear. I picked up my phone, unlocked it, scrolled once, and turned the screen toward her. A drafted message. Her boss's wife's number at the top. Screenshots attached. Her knees buckled. She grabbed the side of the couch to steady herself. Alice gasped. Maddie whispered, "Dad, are you really going to send it?" "Yes." My wife broke. Completely. "She didn't do anything. Please, Callan, don't punish her. Please, please, please." Her voice cracked so violently it echoed. But I stayed still. Calm. Unmoved. I deserved to know the truth. just like I deserved it. And then I hit send. My wife collapsed to her knees, sobbing, begging, hands clasped like she was praying to a god she'd forgotten existed. Alice closed her eyes, face crumpling. Maddie covered her mouth, sobbing quietly. And I just stood there, spine straight, jaw set, hands steady. This wasn't satisfaction, not joy, not heartbreak. It was justice. And justice rarely feels good, just necessary. When my wife finally came back inside, her face was destroyed, blotchy, swollen, streaked with mascara, shaking from head to toe. "She's destroying him," she whispered. "He's getting fired. His reputation..." "Callan, you ruined his life." "No," I said softly. "You two ruined your lives. Together." She broke again. And this time, I let her. The rest of the meeting was quiet destruction. I handed her the preliminary divorce papers, told her she'd get served officially within the week, told her she'd need to vacate the house while the proceedings were underway, as recommended by my attorney, told her financial disclosures would be required immediately, told her adultery had consequences in our state, legal, financial, custodial. Told her I wasn't negotiating privately. Everything goes through lawyers now. She tried to speak. I didn't let her. She tried to explain. I didn't listen. She tried to touch my arm. I stepped back. Finally, she whispered, "Callan, I didn't think you were capable of this." I met her eyes. "You didn't think I was capable of being treated with respect. That was your mistake." The last part wasn't planned. It just happened. When I turned to leave, Maddie grabbed my arm. Not forcefully, just desperately. "Dad, please don't hate me." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a scared young woman who had been manipulated by her mother, pulled into a web she never wanted to be part of. My voice softened. "I don't hate you, Maddie, but I'm hurt, and it's going to take time." She nodded through tears. "I'll wait." She whispered. Alice didn't say anything, didn't apologize, didn't look up. And that silence told me everything. I stepped past them both, opened the door, and walked out of that house not as the man who had been broken 5 days earlier, but as the man who had finally taken his life back. 2 hours later, my lawyer called. Her voice was crisp, almost pleased. "Callan," she said, "there's been a development." "Oh?" "Your wife's affair partner has been suspended pending investigation. HR received an anonymous packet of evidence. I didn't send anything to HR, but his wife sure as hell did. And one more thing," Catherine added. "Yes? Your wife's affair partner's termination, if it proceeds, directly supports your claim of marital misconduct." I exhaled slowly. The dominoes were falling faster than I expected. Good. Let them fall. That night at my brother's place, I sat outside on the patio, staring at the sky. The air was cold, but refreshing. Calm in a way I hadn't felt in days. For the first time since this nightmare began, I could breathe. Really breathe. The marriage was over. The deception exposed, the legal battle set in motion, the other betrayed spouse informed, the affair partner destroyed, the narrative reclaimed. Was I healed? No. But I was no longer drowning, and that alone felt like victory. I whispered to myself, "You should have never underestimated me." Then leaned back, and let the night carry away what was left of the man I used to be. In the weeks that followed, after every explosion, every confrontation, every truth dragged out from the shadows, I found myself standing in the quiet aftermath of a life I no longer recognized. Revenge doesn't fix everything. That's something people rarely admit. It doesn't rewind time. It doesn't unbreak a heart. But what it does do is restore something far more important: your sense of self. I didn't walk away from this marriage the same man who walked into it. That version of me, trusting, forgiving, loyal to a fault, he died in that restaurant the moment I saw my wife kiss another man. But the man who rose from the wreckage, he wasn't built on love or hope or blind faith. He was built on truth, and truth is unbreakable. I learned that peace doesn't come from fixing the people who hurt you. It comes from walking away before their damage becomes your identity. My daughters, they will make their choices, and someday they'll live with the consequences of them. Forgiveness isn't off the table, but it's no longer something expected of me. It's something they'll have to earn. As for my ex-wife, she got exactly what she cultivated: a life built on lies, left to collapse under its own weight. Meanwhile, I walked forward with clearer eyes, a steadier heart, and a future I could finally shape for myself. If you take anything from my story, let it be this: you can survive betrayal. You can rebuild your life. And sometimes, losing everything is the only way to find yourself again. My name is Callan, and this was the story of how I lost my family and found something stronger: me. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been betrayed, overlooked, or underestimated, then you're not alone. Make sure to like this video, subscribe, and share your own story in the comments. Not every revenge needs fire. Sometimes the quietest justice is rebuilding a life they never thought you'd have the strength to reclaim. Until next time, stay strong, stay aware, and remember, your worth is not defined by the people who failed to see it.